This is gonna take crackerjack timing, Wang.
Total concentration. You ready, Jack?
I was born ready.
Today I'm going to talk about Fantastic Four Life Story number 1 from writer Mark Russell. I was a little bit surprised that this was their choice for a writer on this project. Mark Russell certainly is known for divergent timeline kind of stories, but normally they are more like political satire in nature rather than being I don't know. He's just not. When you think of writers, you don't say, who gets to the heart of a character, who really gets to the core of these classic characters. It's Mark Russell. Chip Zdarsky, on the other hand, with his Spider-Man life story, made sense. And I guess that was his original idea. He wanted to do a Marvel Comics life story. It was going to be the entire Marvel universe. They said, let's think smaller, and they decided to do Spider-Man, the flagship character. I think it worked out really well. One of the big selling points of that, obviously, was Mark Bagley coming in and telling this classic, Spider-Man stories through the ages, kind of in decades, but it's more like moments within the decades, the big moments or stories, and really channeling the main aesthetics of the character in those times. He was changing throughout the decades. So I'm surprised they didn't get an artist that's really associated with the Fantastic Four. Not that Sean Izaakse does a bad job here. He does a good job. We'll obviously talk about the art here, but I don't know. It feels like they may have not picked the best suited creative team to really hit Fantastic Four life story out of the park. And I think that kind of hits home when we get into the details of this. This is a fine comic. When I say fine, I mean that in the not flattering terms. It's pretty boring. It hits on some of the things that happen, but it never really gets to the heart of the characters, like the family dynamics that are essentially, the heart that makes Fantastic Four work and really has made it the most popular comic series for quite a while. And really the jumping off point for Marvel Comics, transitioning from Timely into Marvel as a full-time superhero line. Is it the most engaging, shared superhero universe in comics? A lot of people would say yes. I personally like DC, but I like Marvel as well, and so I think there's some failings on that level. This isn't the most exciting story. He didn't really get to the heart of who the characters are and their place in the era, and maybe the way these times challenge the characters. It's kind of there, but for the most part, it's not. So let's get into this. I'm not recommending this, even though it's a 3-star. Normally, I would recommend a 3-star comic, but why read this? Just go start at Fantastic Four number 1 and start reading. It's better than this. Not that Spider-Man life story is better than starting at Spider-Man number 1, but if you wanted an introduction to the character and kind of get to the heart of Spider-Man and get some of the classics and really kind of get into it, I think Spider-Man life story, at least as a series, works. I don't know how this is going to work because this is the first issue, but it doesn't really hit the way that Spider-Man life story did. So let's talk about the art by Sean Izaakse. It's fine. It's good. I feel bad for him. They don't really retell any of the stories in here. Most of it's kind of a montage, but one of the stories they decided to retell is This Man, This Monster, a classic Ben Grimm, Thing story, where it's got, it's like Jack Kirby at his greatest. It's got some of the most wildly inventive, crazy visuals as far as technology, and asking Sean Izaakse to kind of channel that, it's probably not the nicest thing in the world because he doesn't quite get there. But the art's fine. It's good. It's just what it's being compared to and what it's kind of the era that it's representing here, it doesn't quite live up to the original. Like I said, just go read the Jack Kirby stuff. It's better, and that's not like a knock on somebody. It's hard to eclipse Kirby or even match him or not be overshadowed by him when you're trying to retell some of his stuff on Fantastic Four, because that's some of the best art he's ever done. The art does not detract from the story, but I don't think it actually enhances it either. So let's get into the comic itself, the writing from Mark Russell. Probably the biggest misfire on this is, instead of condensing the decade into like one powerful story and maybe a scene or two here and there to say, hey, this also happened, but we're moving on to the next big story. It's a montage for the most part. You know, they tell the origin story, they retell that. It's changed a bit, and you get this man, this monster, and other than that, it's like it's a montage of just moments, and you never really get into the character or into the heart of the matter, what made these moments within the comic book really impactful and cool, because there's just not enough time. If you wanted to hit 1961, 64, 67, and 1969, this needed to be like an 80-page comic, or maybe 60 or something like that. It's too short for him to hit this many eras within a decade. And it almost feels like this was kind of done with Fantastic Four Grand Design in a more inventive fashion, in my opinion. The Spider-Man life story was cool because you got to see the biggest moments reimagined, but you got to go and experience them again. And they were condensed. Like, you take like a 6-issue story or something longer and condense it into one story. But here he's condensing like years worth of stories into just montages. Not my favorite thing, but the biggest miss absolutely is the family dynamics. Sure, they're working together, but you never, like, there's no chemistry between Johnny Storm and Ben Grimm. Like, that's one of the best parts of Fantastic Four is those two quipping off each other and busting each other's balls. And they changed the relationship between Reed Richards and Ben Grimm. Like, they're no longer friends. So they need a pilot because Reed Richards' planned space exploration expedition has been canceled. You're like, well, let's do it now. Well, we need a pilot. Johnny's like, I know a guy. And it's Ben Grimm at a bar, and they're like, how do you know him? And he's like, I don't know. Well, neither do I. Like, why do you know him? Are you friends? And I think removing the friendship and the connection between Reed Richards and Ben Grimm does a disservice to the story. It feels like he only did it so when Ben Grimm got transformed into the Thing, he could kill Reed Richards. But he could have done that, even if they were friends. He was certainly upset about that. Reimagining Sue Storm as a much bigger scientific partner to Reed Richards from the get-go, that's probably a good call. That's what she developed into anyway, and that's what the story needed and the family dynamics needed, was Sue Storm to have a bigger part in this. But really, the only character that gets anything almost is Reed Richards. The entire story is narrated by him. The only characters they really like dive into are him, and then that this monster at the end, and it's like, Reed Richards is a good character, but the Fantastic Four are a family book. It's a team book, and you need to make all the members shine, or it kind of falls flat. Who wants to read a team book where everybody's taking a backseat to one character the entire time? Perhaps in the 70s it'll be the Johnny Storm story where he's narrating it and he's front and center, but I don't think that's probably a good way to go with the Fantastic Four. If you're going to do Fantastic Four life story, obviously, if you're telling sequential stories, there are going to be moments where each team member individually steps forward, and then they're the focus of the book. But there's not enough page count here, and there's not enough real estate to kind of do that. You needed to try and make them all shine, and I think that doesn't really happen here. And like I mentioned earlier, there's only really 2 stories that kind of get retold. It's the origin. We also get hints that Galactus is out there, and then it's this man, this monster, and I think he kind of misses the point of that. In the beginning, when Reed Richards is recruited and given the green light from President Kennedy to kind of try and take America to space, there's another scientist named Ricardo Jones. And he's very upset. I was supposed to be the one that got the 4th crack at getting America into space, and they're very confrontational. And then Reed Richards, mission gets shut down, and then they do it anyway. And they're going through the streets, and it caused a lot of animosity. And this Ricardo Jones is very jealous of Reed Richards, and that's the cool thing about this man, this monster, is the person that replaces him or switches places with Ben Grimm so he can get revenge on Reed Richards, you don't ever know who that is. It's never identified. You don't even know who died or why he really did it. You just knew that he was jealous of him and he was mad at him. But here they decided to put a face to that story. And I think that maybe Mark Russell missed the point of what that story was supposed to be. The origin story is fine. I don't think it's as good as what we got in the first few issues of Fantastic Four. But even the one story beyond that kind of gets some time to breathe and they try to retell is lackluster in nature because it ruins the mystery or doesn't get the mystery of why that's a classic story and it's really important. And this is also another moment like where they see Galactus, and that's the moment Ricardo Jones decides that he needs to save Reed Richards. Is they see Galactus, he's, oh, you weren't lying. Everyone thought he was crazy. What was I thinking? I've got to save. It was like, this doesn't make okay. So there's a lot of boring stuff in here. It's not bad. It's just not good. That's the problem. The art is very serviceable. The story is told ably, but it almost feels like, did they neuter Mark Russell? Mark Russell's pretty much a one-trick pony as far as a writer, and it's like political satire. Did you take the fangs off the rattlesnake and just tell him to tell a straight superhero story? Why would you get Mark Russell to do that? So I'm glad that he didn't decide to take the Fantastic Four life story and try to do a bunch of political commentary. Although there's a tiny bit in here, but it made sense for the time and for the Fantastic Four to be a part of that. But I anticipated that he was going to be more like Snaggletooth mode or something of that nature. But if he doesn't have that tool in his arsenal, is he a good writer? This is okay, but it's not like, it's nothing to write home about. It's nothing to be excited about. That's the problem. So I imagine a lot of people probably will like this. If you want just a really generic, mundane story of the Fantastic Four, like retelling of their origin, I say just go back and read the origin. Go back and read Stan and Jack's Fantastic Four. It's better than this by miles. It gets the characters right, and it puts the family dynamics front and center. Really, the only thing that's additive to this that I think is a good addition is Sue Storm having a bigger role from the get-go. But even that, they say it, and it's demonstrated a tiny bit. But then after that, she just leaves the story. It's just the Reed Richards show. So he forgot it was the Fantastic Four and not the Fantastic Reed Richards book. We'll see how this goes. I'm probably not going to keep reading this. It's too expensive, and I've read enough of the early Fantastic Four stuff that I know this probably isn't my cup of tea. If you enjoyed it, that's great. Let me know in the comments section. Where did I get this wrong? Where did this comic really stand out? Let the other viewers know in the comments section if they want a different take on this. But I was underwhelmed. Not a whole lot going on here. It's not bad by any means, but there's nothing. It doesn't feel like Spider-Man life story where it was really getting to the heart of the character, highlighting who Peter Parker was, and kind of condensing some of these really big stories into one comic book to where you could enjoy it, and really highlighting Peter Parker. There probably just isn't enough space to do a team book. They probably need to do life story with individual characters, and I don't think Mark Russell's the right guy. If he doesn't get to use his political satire, it feels like I don't know. He's Cullen Bunn writing a superhero comic, a fish out of water. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.